Hey everybody, Omar here, your knife of the party guy, and I am back with another fun-filled video for you. And today we're going to be taking a look at another prominent knife maker in South Africa by the name of Herucus Blomerus. Herucus Blomerus is originally, obviously, he's a South African knife maker. He was also a protege, somewhat, under the tutelage of Andre Thorburn. In fact, for a while, his knives were sort of seen as, I guess, copycats of Andre Thorburn. But as time went on, everyone began to realize that he's got a style of his own, and he's got a niche of his own, and he does really great, awesome work. In front of you, you see two knives that represent who he is as a knife maker. I'm going to go and walk around because it looks like the lighting here is a little bit too tight. We're going to be taking a look at both knives here. I'm just going to go a little bit more into the shadow. So here we have the L15 Herucus Blomerus piece. This is a full dress piece that he made. His knives tend to have a quality, a fit, and a finish that is pretty much all their own. He knows how to balance that work with what he does, and it's just absolutely spectacular. This is a full dress piece with marble, carbon fiber, and blue Damascus for the bolster. We've got a Damascus backspacer, and the file work looks absolutely spectacular on this knife. What I like about this knife is that most knife makers will put maybe one or two materials on a knife and they'll make that the dominant aesthetic on the knife. But in this piece, that's not the case. He's got three. We've got Damascus, we've got blue Damascus, and we've got marble carbon fiber, all working together to create a great, fantastic aesthetic. And all three materials on this knife are tight as hell. He really knows how to do it up. We've got a nice titanium pocket clip there on the knife. One of the niches that Herucus Blomerus does with his knife making is quite spectacular. I'm going to bring out another knife you guys can take a look at, which is over here at the table that I've got. So I'm kind of walking around, but one of the things that Herucus Blomerus does that I kind of admire is that he knows how to create a really great model knife based on the contours of anyone's hand. In other words, they'll feel fantastic in anybody's hand, no matter what. Now, one of the things that he does is that I always admired is that he is able to make a completely brand new model knife. In fact, Herucus Blomerus is one of those knife makers who can create a model knife pretty much out of any shape, any look, any aesthetic, and it looks fantastic. One of the things that he does not do, and I love this, and a lot of knife makers do it, and I don't blame them, is where they take a large knife and shrink it down and make it like the new model knife. They just basically take this same exact model and shrink it down. Herucus Blomerus does not do that. What he does is he realizes that a small knife is a different kind of a knife, and there's no reason why you can't create a different ergonomic for that market. And that's one of the things that, one of the strengths that Herucus Blomerus has. And I'm going to bring out the other knife, and you're going to see that the other knife, which is actually much smaller, is actually a completely different looking knife. It doesn't even look anything at all the same. So I'm going to bring that out. I'm going to go back over here to the shadow so you guys can see the knife a little bit better. So this one is one of Herucus Blomerus's smaller knives. When I mean one of his smaller knives, he actually has 3 or 4, I think maybe 5 small model knives, and they're all completely different knives. I mean, ergonomically and aesthetically, they don't even look alike. There's no way you could even mistake any one of his knives. as the same, as thinking it's all the same knife, because that's not the case. He actually creates a completely different model knife for every situation, and that's one of the things that I love about Herucus Blomerus, is that you get the variety that you're looking for. You know, he's not just going to take a large knife and shrink it down. I think maybe in his mind that kind of takes away the art, and you're not challenging yourself as a knife maker if you're just taking a knife and shrinking it down to a smaller size. So this is the Herucus Blomerus LL06 front flipper. And that's another thing that he's changing, is he actually has names now for his knives, which I think is really nice, rather than just calling it a number like the LL06 or the L15 or whatever. Numbers don't do anything for us, so he realized that, I guess, because now he's got a flipper called the Noco flipper, which actually has a name, so we can all follow that model a lot easier, so it makes it a little bit nicer. So we're looking at the Herucus Blomerus L06 knife, and this piece is quite unique. It's very small in the hand. It's a front flipper piece, and one of the things that he does with his front flippers is that they're very small. And most of his front flippers are more comfortable as index flippers. You know, where you just take your index finger and flip it. You can use your thumb, but I don't think it's as comfortable as the index, using your index finger. This knife is bronze colored. I don't know if you can tell that in the light, but it's bronze colored with sort of these really pretty bronze flakes on the inside of the knife. Really very nice, lightning strike type color. So we got the bronze theme for the bolsters, and the on the back of the knife, the bronze theme continues. The back spacer itself is M390, which is another niche that Herucus Blomerus does and no other knife maker does. He will make a back spacer out of anything. So this back spacer is M390. So basically, if you break the tip of the knife off, you can always go somewhere and rip off the back spacer and make that the new blade. So that's M390 back there. The aesthetics on the knife are just simple strikes and lines going across. I've got news for you. Herucus Blomerus is growing in that field as well. It's no longer you're going to see simple lines striking across a knife. He's now got actual designs that actually rival Andre Thorburn. He works with other knife designers like Julian Marshall to create that. And if you go on his website, you will see he's got like really elaborate designs like lions and tigers and bears and you know, all kinds of really pretty looking aesthetics to put on your bolster. He's real famous for that now. He is just a knife maker that is constantly growing and constantly learning, and yet he's one of the prominent knife makers out of the four. You know, I call them the Fab Four. Des Horn, Andre Thorburn, Herucus Blomerus, and John Arnold. In my opinion, those are the four elder knife makers or knife smiths. And those four guys have really created the market for the future knife makers like J.D. Van Deventer and Trevor Berger and guys like that. And so they've created the style, and they've also let the younger generation take over and pick up what they've learned from how they make their knives, because these older guys have been making knives for about 30 years. Guys like Trevor Berger and J.D. Van Deventer and Clyde Challenor, they're going on, you know, especially Clyde Challenor, who's in a market all by himself. But Trevor Berger and J.D. Van Deventer, those guys have been around for about 15 to 20 years making knives professionally, and you can see a little bit of their of like Herucus Blomerus and Andre Thorburn and Des Horn. You can see their influence in their work as well. And this is just the perfect way how we see that the knife world is evolving in South Africa. They've decided to keep that balance of art and tool and just keep it as real as they possibly can. So this small front flipper is just an example of Herucus Blomerus's work in the small field and how he will constantly create a new piece of art no matter what the size. Bringing out the other knife back. I mean, as you guys can see, the knives don't look anything at all the same. It's not like this model here is this model over here shrunk down. That's not the case. It's a completely different knife. In fact, I don't think Herucus Blomerus has actually ever done that, where he's maybe taken a model knife like this and shrunk it down and said, okay, this is the new small knife. Instead, he'll actually create an entirely different model to fit the hand for your more smaller needs, and that's something to be admired. One of the things that Herucus Blomerus also does is he learns. He's not ashamed to learn from other knife makers, even though he's been making knives for many, many years, learning how to do something to make your product more accessible to other people that may like that aesthetic or something. He'll learn it, he'll pick it up. So, hence is the case with the file work. Other knife makers that do file work are Andre Thorburns really famous for it. Des Horn is really famous for it. And he's picked it up too. So, you know, to sit there and say that Herucus Blomerus' work is just a copycat of Andre Thorburn, you're not doing the man justice, because that's not true. How about, let's just say this, he has an ability to adapt to just about anything. And I think that's one of the reasons why people love Herucus Blomerus' style, not only for the way that he makes knives, but for his ability to adapt and create and learn from other knife makers and make that aesthetic his own when he's creating his art. That now he's able to slowly transform all of that into a great looking knife and have everyone know that this is an Herucus Blomerus piece, and only Herucus Blomerus can create such a beautiful knife. I think that there's going to be a time when people will stop saying that about Herucus Blomerus, and they'll just accept the fact that the man is pretty much able to adapt to just about anything, and he's also not ashamed to learn and from anyone. Herucus Blomerus is a man who makes knives by hand, but he has also made knives with CNC machining as well. I've seen his website. He uses computers to create the design. There's nothing wrong with that. He does it successfully time and time again. So again, you know, we're seeing, even though he can make knives completely by hand, he also has access to that type of technology that makes knives a little bit more fun. He's also not a knife maker who is afraid to ask for help from other knife makers, knowing that he'll be able to make a fantastic product in the end and still be able to keep his, you know, his name. Other knife makers are happy to work with him in that fashion. So one of the things that makes Herucus Blomerus really fantastic is his ability to share. His sharing ability actually shows up on his knives. I wish I had a knife from Herucus that actually shows his work with Julian Marchal, because not a lot of knife makers are willing to do that, where they're going to go out and reach out with another artist and say, hey, you do fantastic bolster work. Can you create a really cool lion engraving on my knife? And I'll give a shout out to you for you and your work on my knife as well. Not a lot of knife makers will do that. Some of them are just too prideful to go and ask for help, but I think Herucus Blomerus shows that it's possible to ask for help and still have your name shine as well. We're in it for the idea of creating art. Whether I do it alone or whether I do it with someone else makes no difference. We're creating an environment of sharing, and we want the art to be seen. And so that is the case with the Herucus Blomerus. And that being said, I'm going to close out this video so you guys can get a better idea of the influence this man has in the knife world. Somewhere out there is going to be a young knife maker who's going to see the work that Herucus Blomerus does. He's going to see that he's willing to work with other knife makers to create fantastic art. And it's just, their influence is just going to keep continuing on from one model to the next. So this is Omar, your knife of the party guys, signing off, hoping you'll find an Herucus Blomerus knife in your future. You will not be unhappy. You might be broke, but you'll be happy. So I will talk to you guys later in the next video, which I'm going to start in a few minutes, which is part 3 of my series of the elder knife makers in South Africa and their influence on the knife world. And I will be back with that video, so I'll talk to you guys in a bit. Again, this is the Herucus Blomerus L15 flipper, and this one is the L06 flipper. You can see both models on his website, or you can check him out on Instagram. Just punch in Herucus Blomerus and you'll see all of his work on Instagram and his website, Herucus Blomerus Knives. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in a bit.